Chapter 11. On Ji-Han-Yu's 12th birthday, his father brought a boy and girl home. He'd pulled their hands and walked to his side, telling him that they were his younger brother and sister, and that he should take care of them. While Ji-Han-Yu was still dumbfounded, his mother suddenly overturned his huge birthday cake and cursed his father, resembling an uncultured shrew. She said things like, "Jiming Xuan, what kind of thing are you? Look at yourself. You're a fat old man, nearly 50 years old. Why is a 20-something-year-old little girl giving birth to your children? Do you think you are her true love? Without my cow family support, you're fucking nothing. Take these bastards out of my sight." His father's face had bloated like a pig liver. Ji-Han-Yu thought he looked funny, so he laughed. His father was angered. He pointed at him and ridiculed. "Bastard, what are you laughing at? Who do you think you are? Your mother called them bastards, but she's also the cow family's bastard. Without the G family's wealth, why would anyone pay attention to you? You guys eat from me, take from me, yet still fight against me. Ungrateful bastards." At that time, he scoffed at these words, but they left a deep imprint in his heart. That's why he heard Lin Chengzi say that he was just in love with his family background. When he heard Lin Chengzi say that he was just in love with his family background, he got so angry, then thought up that ridiculous plan. He told Lin Chengzi that the Ji family went bankrupt, that he had nowhere to go. His expression was very depressed, but he was laughing heartily inside. The Ji family had really gone bankrupt. All those illegitimate children that coveted the family property were probably hiding in their beds, weeping. But for Ji-Han-Yu, it had no effect. When his mother had married into the Ji family, his grandfather had given her a lot of cash, enough for them to spend for a lifetime. He'd asked his mother for 2 million, and with his uncle's help, he'd built a factory. The profits were sizable. He'd pretended to be penniless and rang Lin Chengzi's doorbell, hoping he would shelter him. Lin Chengzi agreed, but he had started alienating him, fawning over his friends instead. Ji-Han-Yu looked on from the sidelines, sneering in his heart. He thought that Lin Chengzi had already fallen into his trap. He'd planned to live here for a few days, then leave. But in short 3 days, Fang Yudan's selfless care touched him. So he decided to stay. He deliberately got closer to Fang Yudan, leading him into his arms, while introducing Lin Chengzi to his friends, hoping he'd fall into his showy and rotten trap. Lin Chengzi was annoyed with his friends. Even Ji-Han-Yu had noticed, but he'd still always be available for them. At that time, Ji-Han-Yu thought that Lin Chengzi really could endure anything for money, but the later event taught him the true reason behind Lin Chengzi's endurance. It was all for him. Ji-Han-Yu thought that Fang Yudan had given him the purest love, but he didn't expect Lin Chengzi's love to be even more pure, even more desperate. He was like a raging fire. He was willing to burn himself to ashes for his beloved. When he loved you, he would even willingly offer up his soul. This was the type of love Ji-Han-Yu had always desired, but he inadvertently discarded it. He slept with Fang Yudan when he saw Lin Chengzi suddenly appear, ashen-faced. He hadn't felt the slightest remorse. Why wasn't he remorseful? Whenever the scene replayed in his dreams, Ji-Han-Yu stood in front of himself countless times, over and over interrogating himself, cursing himself, even wanting to slap himself awake. That night, the bright red banknotes were scattered over the ground, gaudy, ridiculing. Ji-Han-Yu stood in the empty room for a long time, then knelt down and picked them up one by one, until the whole floor was clean. Holding the money was like holding a piece of branding iron. His palms were scalded, painful, but he couldn't drop it. He had to return it all. Return it 100-fold, 1,000-fold, then get Lin Chengzi back. It was only at that moment that he recalled all of the little details of being with Lin Chengzi, suddenly understanding why he loathed his friends, but still patiently socialized with them. He just hoped that they could lend him a hand when he was in need. Everything he did was for his sake. Jihan Yu didn't dare imagine all the tears and hardship he had invested behind his back. And even more, he didn't dare imagine his thoughts when he'd realized that he'd left him in a sex party to be abused. Fang Yudan helped him tidy up the money, then suddenly hugged him, crying bitterly, repeatedly shouting, "I'm sorry." Those tears that would have made him pamper him in the past now only made him feel sick. Compared to Lin Chengzi's desperate efforts, what did Fang Yudan give up? Why was he even moved by him? Just because he expressed his feelings more than Lin Chengzi? Lin Chengzi was so proud. He always said that the person who fell in love first was the loser. At that time, Jihan Yu didn't understand why that was his favorite phrase. But now he knew. When he repeated that sentence to him over and over, he was telling him, "I already lost." But his pride didn't allow him to admit it. So he told others that he just loved his money. Such an awkward temper, yet so lovely. Jihan Yu smiled, but then he started to cry. He pushed Fang Yudan away and roared at him to leave, to forever get out of his and Lin Chengzi's world. "When I look at you, I feel sick, but I'm even sicker than you are," he said with blood-red eyes. Lin Chengzi disappeared. Jihan Yu couldn't find him anywhere. He resorted to squatting at the Qwfod family's mansion's door, waiting. In the past, he'd only felt admiration and gratefulness for Kao Mo-kun, but now he was deeply resentful. You knew he was my boyfriend. Why did you snatch him?" Kao Mo-kun gave him a mocking smile, saying, "Buying your relationship for 300,000 was the most successful investment I've ever made." Jihan Yu had no way to fight back. After leaving, he'd glanced back at the house, telling himself that he must get stronger, more powerful than Kao Mo-kun, so he could recapture his former lover. Still, Lin Chengzi ultimately disappeared, completely gone. Since then, Jihan Yu suffered from insomnia, relying on more and more drugs to survive 3 painful months. 3 months later, a friend opened a video on his phone, asking him to watch. His behavior was very mysterious. Jihan Yu indifferently glanced at it, then was stunned. Grabbing the phone, he greedily stared at the captivating boy on the screen. Of course, it was Lin Chengzi. The Lin Chengzi his heart yearned for. The Lin Chengzi who made him deeply regretful to love again. "This ad is blowing up online. Damn it. How didn't I notice that Lin Chengzi was such a fox? You introduced him to Wang Ji, but not me. What the hell, man? Oh, right. Wasn't he your boyfriend? What kind of beauty? Why did you willingly give him out? You're too daring." Jihan Yu didn't wait for him to finish before he ruthlessly struck out with a fist, his eyes full of endless hatred. "Why did you willingly give him out? Why did you willingly give him out?" He'd also questioned himself countless times in the past. "Why did you willingly give him out? You're so stupid." His heart, he heard that buying a bottle of extravagant came with Lin Chengzi's promotional poster. Jihan Yu skipped class and rushed to the nearest department store. The counter was crowded with people. Everyone was clamoring for a bottle. He was crowded out, and when he finally managed to reach the front, the salesman told him that they were out of stock. He couldn't describe the great feeling of panic he had at that time. It seemed like no matter how hard he tried, he'd never be able to touch Lin Shengzi again. He walked out of the mall like a wandering spirit, standing on the street in a daze. He looked up at the giant LED screen that was broadcasting an interview with top international designer Orlando. He called Lin Shengzi his goddess of beauty, Narcissus glancing at his reflection by the lakeside, Ganymede who poured wine for the gods. His appearance could make gods and kings fall. If you didn't love him, it was simply a sin. The last sentence broke Jihan Yu's heart. He didn't love him. He just realized. He did love him. He just realized too late. A picture of Lin Shengzi showed up on the screen. Many people stopped to look up. Even a few cars slowed down. Their eyes exposed unconcealable surprise and longing. Jihan Yu didn't dare look. He left in a trance. Eventually, he used some connections to buy a few bottles of extravagant and covered his room with Lin Shengzi posters. It was as if he'd never left. From that day on, he was gradually able to fall asleep, but his dreams were plentiful. He desperately worked, hoping to overtake Kao-mo-kun as soon as possible. He became an upstart in the business world. Various kinds of beauties pranced around him, but they could no longer arouse even a bit of his interest. If you once had the most precious treasure in the world, then you lost it, you would find that no other person or thing could ever enter your eyes. Lin Shengzi was the best. No one could replace him. One day, after handling a very important business deal, Jihan Yu returned home, exhausted. He sat on the sofa and stared blankly at the wall, covered with Lin Shengzi photos. Suddenly, the news broadcasted on a TV reported that Kao-mo-kun was in a car accident. His lower body was seriously injured, and he might be paralyzed. Jihan Yu froze for several minutes. Then, an insuppressible joy rose in his heart. Kao-mo-kun had fallen. Maybe this meant he had another chance. What was Lin Shengzi's feeling right now? Anxious? Helpless? No, I must hurry to his side as quickly as possible. Jihan Yu immediately stood up and packed his things. He emptied out his wardrobe to find his most decent suit and changed into it. He dragged his suitcase to the airport and bought the earliest flight to F country. About 20 minutes from boarding time, Lin Shengzi's captivating face appeared on a TV in the terminal. He looked very haggard, but his eyes were striking. He came out in front of all the media, saying with a resolute expression, "Kao-mo-kun is my lover. I love him, so I will never give up on him. I hope we can get everyone's blessings." At that moment, Kao-mo-kun became the most hated man in the world. Jihan Yu heard the teen girls who were sitting on the row over burst into grieving tears. A man angrily kicked a billboard, muttering the interview was faked. It was an April Fool's joke, etc. In this world, many people madly adored Lin Shengzi, but he only loved one person. Jihan Yu laughed and laughed until tears unexpectedly flowed out. He wondered why did he think that Lin Shengzi would need him at this time? Why did he think that he would accept him just because Kao-mo-kun met with misfortune? He was Lin Shengzi after all. The Lin Shengzi who once he fell in love with someone, he was loyal until death. His beloved will be the happiest person in the world. Refunding his ticket, Jihan Yu returned to his house, muddle-headed, then fell into bed. He had a dream. In that dream, he was sitting in the dining room in the Lin house, helping Lin Shengzi pick out the green peppers in his food. Seeing him eat eagerly, He quickly poured him a glass of warm milk, then kissed his milk-drenched lips. Lin Chengzi's arm wrapped around his neck, his peach blossom eyes glittering. He was so beautiful, so captivating. Ji Han Yu woke up with a sweet smile. Then he looked around his cold and empty room and was brought back to his hopeless reality. He'd spent 2 months hating Lin Chengze, but now he'll spend the rest of his life loving him. He always considered moving on, but he sunk deeper and deeper every day. Lin Chengze had already left him behind, but he was still trapped in his dull memories, never able to move on. Lin Chengze's love was like a raging fire. His fire had burned Ji Han Yu's soul to ashes, leaving only an empty shell.